CIA Memorial Wall located in HQ in Virginia. It honors 140 CIA agents who died in the line of service. It will take long videos, so I divide it in parts. Date: March 20, 1947, Lieutenant John Creech and Daniel Dennett, Jr. Lieutenant John Creech and Daniel Dennett, Jr., both CIA officers. On the way to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, they were killed by plane crash in bad weather. They worked for CIG, predecessor to CIA. Date: April 29, 1950, Douglas McKiernan. Douglas McKiernan, he was the first CIA employee to be killed in the line of duty, with the first star honoring him on the wall. McKiernan had worked for State Department in China since 1947. When People's Republic of China was established at the end of Chinese Civil War in 1949, the State Department ordered that the Tihua consulate, where McKiernan was stationed as vice consul, to be closed and all personals to leave the country. However, McKiernan was ordered to stay behind and destroy cryptographic equipment to monitor the situation and to aid anti-communist nationalists. McKiernan fled south towards India after most escape routes were cut off. After McKiernan survived the Taklamakan Desert and Himalayas, he was shot by Tibetan border guards. Probably they mistook them as communist infiltrators on April 29, 1950. Date: January 11, 1951, Jerome Jinli. Jerome Jinli was killed when he was in plane that crashed into the East China Sea, near the Japanese Ryukyu Islands. Date: November 29, 1952, Norman Schwartz and Robert Snoddy. Schwartz and Snoddy were pilots of C-47 aircraft on a mission to extract a CIA operative from China. Their plane took off from South Korea for Jilin province inside China. They were preparing to pick up the agent with an airborne extraction system. But unfortunately, the operative was compromised by Chinese forces and their plane was shot down. Both Schwartz and Snoddy were killed, while two other CIA crew members, Richard Fecteau and John Downey, were captured by the Chinese and held until 1971 and 1973. Schwartz's and Snoddy's remains were returned in 2005. Year: 1954, James Pete McCarthy, Jr. James was a paramilitary operations officer. He died in 1954 on a training flight in Southeast Asia. Date: May 15, August 31, September 17, 1956, Wilburn Rose, Frank Grace, Howard Carey. Three of these CIA pilots who died in U-2 crashes. Date: June 16, 1956, William Boteler. Boteler was killed in the bombing of a restaurant in Cyprus that was frequented by CIA operatives. Aoka Ethniki Organosis Kyprian Agoniston, the group which committed the attack, was a Greek Cypriot nationalist organization that fought a campaign for the end of British rule in Cyprus. Date: January 1957, James McGrath. McGrath died on an accident while working on a high-power German transmitter in January 1957. His star was placed on the wall in 2007. Date: March 17, 1960, Chioki Ikeda. Ikeda died when Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 710 crashed in Indiana while he was on temporary duty assignment in the United States. Date: May 1, 1960, Stephen Casarda. Casarda died while stationed in Southeast Asia. His job was to support the agency's air supply mission to Tibet. He and another officer would live and work in a small communications facility at a remote airfield in Southeast Asia. From there, they would communicate with aircraft supplying the Tibetans and stand ready to support emergency landings in case of trouble. Only 2 weeks after arriving at the site, Steve died in a tragic accident. In 105-degree heat, he stripped down to shoes and shorts and scaled the Como building's steep metal roof to scout sites for new antennas. What he could not have known was that the roof carried a lethal current from an improperly grounded wire. It took his life moments later. Stephen Casarda was 30 years old when he died. Date: April 19, 1961, Leo Francis Baker, Wade Gray, Thomas Willard, Pete Ray, Riley Schamberger. On April 19, 1961, sometime after midnight, the four pilots, Pete Ray and his co-pilot Leo Baker, Riley Schamberger and his co-pilot Wade Gray, were flying their B-20 SIXS to the area known as Bahia de Cochinos, the Bay of Pigs, expecting to provide air support to the beleaguered anti-Castro ground troops. At that point, the men on the beach were easy targets for Castro's pilots. The mission of the anti-Castro air effort was to penetrate the beachhead area, attack Castro forces, and destroy whatever they could, especially trucks and tanks. Pete and Leo's aircraft was fired upon by at least one of the Cuban Air Force's T-33 fighter aircraft. It may also have been hit by the extensive ground fire occurring in the area. Their B-26 went down in a ball of fire, crash-landing on the beach. Pete and Leo survived the crash and fled from the heavily damaged aircraft, but shortly thereafter they were killed by Cuban militiamen. Riley and Wade's B-26 was also hit as it approached the target area. When last glimpsed by another American B-26 pilot, it was at 100 feet above the beach, headed for the water at about 300 miles per hour. The plane hit the sea at a shallow angle. There were no survivors. Date: May 13, 1961, Nels Benson. Benny was one of the instructors assigned to train Cuban exile guerrillas for the Bay of Pigs invasion. He was disassembling military ordnance items to construct a utility explosive charge when the material caught fire. To keep anyone else from getting hurt, he attempted to move the burning mixture away from other highly volatile materials. While doing so, Benny suffered severe burns that proved fatal. He clung to life for a few weeks before succumbing on May 13, 1961. This were some of the CIA officers who died while of operations or in pre-operation. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more.